Yo, what up guys? Chris here, and today we're hopping back through the Mass Relay to talk about one of the most divisive endings in video game history. The Mass Effect trilogy is up there with Lost and Game of Thrones in terms of beloved stories with massively panned finales. So naturally, I'm gonna defend it, something I certainly will not regret. Just kidding, I'm already filled with regret. But let's soldier on with this Wisecrack Edition in defense of Mass Effect. And as always, spoilers ahead for the Mass Effect trilogy. But before we get into it, I wanted to take a second and tell you about Wisecrack's movie podcast, Show Me the Meaning. It's hosted by Raymond, Austin, and Ryan, and has everything you already love about our videos, but with a lot more time to dive into the deep end of film fandom. It covers everything from award-winning films to old school favorites and underappreciated cult classics. And of course, video game adaptations like the recent episode on Mortal Kombat, which was, well, you can check out the episode for our take. We stream live here on the Wisecrack channel, and if you ever miss a stream, you can check them out later on our Wisecast channel, linked in the description below. Check out Show Me the Meaning on our Wisecast channel, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And while you're there, feel free to rate and leave a review. Now, back to the show. Let's start with the reason people were so upset at Mass Effect's ending. The whole franchise is built on the idea of choice. Choices that ripple through successive games, shaping the world and narrative. So when players who had been building their own little universes of stacked decisions got to the finale, they were a little shocked, because none of it seemed to matter. Unless, well, it did? Before we can figure out if the game completely abandoned its central premise, let's do a brief overview. Set in 2183, Mass Effect tells the story of elite soldier Commander Shepard and their quest to keep the galaxy safe. Thanks to a series of massive devices seemingly left behind by a now defunct civilization called the Protheans, people in Shepard's time can travel all around the Milky Way in the blink of an eye. Humanity is also in contact with many other sentient species who they now live alongside in relative harmony. Now, you might be wondering, what happened to Protheans themselves? If they were so smart, how come they're so dead?
This bunker might have been the last refuge of their entire species.
Well, Shepard's journey quickly arrives at an unsettling answer to that question in the form of the Reapers, a race of synthetic beings who basically turn up every 50,000 years and wipe out all of the galaxy's most evolved life forms. Each of the three games sees Shepard going from planet to planet, learning more about the Reapers and assembling allies to stop the galactic cycle of extermination. Throughout each journey, a huge emphasis is placed on the choices that the player makes. After designing their own Shepard's appearance and abilities, the player will quickly find themselves drawn to the internal conflicts of the various planets they visit. How they handle these situations often has a big impact on how the story plays out. Characters and even entire races live and die depending on whether Shepard acts as a principled paragon or an ends justify the means renegade. Many of these consequences carry over from one game to the next, making them feel even more impactful.
We owe you that much. After all, you saved our lives in the battle against Saren and his Geth.
The choices often involve the crewmates you recruit along the way. By spending time with them and helping them complete their own personally motivated side missions, you can earn their respect and loyalty. Or you can rule with an iron fist and go around punching people in the face when they disagree with you.
I've had enough of your disingenuous assertions.
And how you relate to those around you can literally become a matter of life and death. For example, Mass Effect 2 ends with a so-called suicide mission where you can kill off your entire crew. But if you've developed strong enough bonds, and if you plan out the attack correctly, they can all make it through unscathed. Other choices take place on a much larger scale, like when you find yourself in the middle of an ongoing conflict between the technologically advanced but biologically delicate Quarian race and their resentful robotic offspring, the Geth. Shepard can opt to pick a side in the battle so that one race joins him while the other is annihilated. But if you're more diplomatic and less cool with the whole space genocide thing, you can also help negotiate a peaceful resolution. In either case though, the outcome hinges on a combination of the player's skill and morality.
I'd have killed the Geth with no regrets, and I'd have been wrong. Thank you.
In some ways, this isn't that unusual. You have a great hero whose actions can make or break the fate of billions. Trillions? You get the idea. But it also hints at larger questions about the nature of free will. That is, individual human actions, in this case made by you, the player, are not destined but chosen. The universe is not fated to happen one way or another because it's full of people like you who have free will. And this is why so many felt burned at the end of Mass Effect 3, when they were left with just a handful of predetermined choices. But this didn't necessarily come out of nowhere, because even before the finale, the game was complicating the idea that our choices can make us master of the universe. From the very first game, it continually puts the player into situations where they have to choose between two bad options. The battle at the end of the first game forces you to pick between two human crewmates, Kaden and Ashley. Whoever doesn't get the rose is promptly murdered.
Suppressing fire! Cover your flank! Cover your...
Another major plotline which runs through the games is the plight of the Krogans, a brutal, warmongering race who have been afflicted by genetic disease. Shepard has to decide whether to let the sickness go untreated or to take action, preventing their extinction but potentially creating an unstoppable adversary in the future. Notably, even if you choose to cure the disease once and for all, it still costs at least one debatably innocent life. These moments are all about choice, but choices that are extremely confined by circumstance. Each of the first two games ends with the morally fraught situation where achieving even temporary victory against the Reapers comes at a heavy cost. Which brings us to the deeply unpopular ending of the third game. If you were part of the crowd that was calling for blood when this first dropped back in 2012, take a deep breath. Everything is okay. You're allowed to dislike things. You good? Alright, so here we go. Shepard spends the third game uniting races from around the galaxy into one mighty military force, ready to square off with the Reapers and reclaim the Earth. At the same time, they try to repair a weapon left behind by the Protheans called the Crucible, which they believe could be their salvation. After battling through the war-torn streets of London, a wounded Shepard finally makes it all the way to the Crucible. But before they can pull the trigger on their ancient superweapon, they're confronted by an artificial intelligence called the Catalyst, taking the form of the young boy that Shepard was unable to save during the initial Reaper invasion. Suffice to say that many gamers were not thrilled by the arrival of the magic space baby. The Catalyst reveals that it was behind the Reapers all along. It claims organic life is inherently doomed to create the technology that destroys it, which is why the Reapers wipe out any civilization that gets too advanced, preserving their DNA and leaving less developed life forms untouched. Without this artificial cycle of life, death, and rebirth, all organic life in the galaxy would eventually be wiped out forever. Though we've long thought of the Reapers as the embodiment of death itself, they're actually revealed to be on a mission to preserve life at all costs. But the Catalyst also concedes that Shepard has won, and presents them with three choices of how they can use the Crucible to strike the final blow. Shepard can carry out the original plan and use the Crucible to wipe the Reapers out altogether, but this will also destroy all other synthetic life in the galaxy, which, bummer. And of course, the Catalyst is adamant that organics will eventually create a new race of machines to wage war on them anyway.
Soon, your children will create synthetics, and then the chaos will come back.
Alternatively, you can turn the Reapers into a police force for the galaxy, with an AI copy of Shepard at the helm. This will bring about peace, but it will also effectively turn Shepard into an all-powerful dictator who no longer has any connection to organic life. Finally, they can choose to add their DNA to the Crucible, creating a chain reaction which causes the DNA of all synthetic and organic life throughout the galaxy to merge, thus ending the war, perhaps permanently. Though it does mean forcibly rewriting everyone's genetic code, which is kind of a big deal. Many players resented this final choice for a couple of major reasons. The first is that your final decision largely overrides everything you did before, like curing the genophage, ending the Quarian Geth War, saving countless lives, and bonding with all of your teammates. No matter what you did along the way, it all boils down to this three-pronged fork in the road. And secondly, the final outcome is largely the same no matter what you pick. You watch Shepard make their choice, see the Crucible do its thing, and then get to enjoy a cutscene where members of your crew gaze out across the horizon at the brave new world you have created. The color of the explosion is different depending on what you chose, and the synthesized ending sees your organic crewmates sporting weird digital highlights to their bodies, but aside from that, and the implication that Shepard might have survived in one ending, the endings are basically the same. For some, this flew in the face of everything the series was about, celebrating free will as a force that makes our lives meaningful.
The defining characteristic of organic life is that we think for ourselves, make our own choices. You take that away, we might as well be machines just like you.
But in truth, Mass Effect always made it clear that this was no conventional hero narrative. The consequence of humanity discovering the mass relays was that it introduced them to a world far greater and more complex than their own. Throughout, the galaxy was shown to be far too vast a place for any one person's decisions to ripple all the way through it. Even a badass space soldier like Shepard only has a limited ability to guide their own fate, let alone that of the galaxy at large. Shepard might talk to a baby space god, but there's only so much they can do, no matter how they got there. Mass Effect highlights this by punctuating its heroic tale with no-win situations that bring the limits of Shepard's power into clear focus. Take the series' recurring motif of cycles. Ultimately, Mass Effect is about the endless repetition of destruction, which organic life appears to be trapped in. It's a galaxy doomed to eventually return to lifelessness because organic life will always science itself to death. The Reapers solved this problem by creating a smaller cycle of their own, wiping out one generation of organic life to protect the next. And the choices presented to Shepard at the end of the third game represent three alternative solutions. Either continuing this cycle by killing or commanding the Reapers, or breaking it by forcibly harmonizing life across the galaxy. None of these choices feel great, but that's kind of the point. This happens on a smaller level too, as most of the characters' side quests are about breaking cycles of their own. Thane is trying to keep his son from falling down the same path he has. Tali and Legion are caught in the cycle of violence between their people, while characters like Zaid are consumed by a quest for vengeance. And of course, the overarching cycle that the game deals with is that of life and death. From the mystery of the Protheans to the return of the Reapers, Mass Effect revolves around the idea of old things ending so that new things can begin. It's the nature of the cosmos, and Shepard is not immune to it, even if they have some say in what comes next. No matter how tremendous our journey in life might be, the destination is inevitably the same. Yes, you can make choices, but some of these things are simply out of your control. But just because you can't change everything doesn't mean that all of your previous choices were pointless. To figure out why, we can turn to a philosopher who was big on endless cycles and fate, Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche wanted people to imagine that our lives would play on a loop for eternity, one in which the choices we made, the outcomes they brought, and our inevitable death were all fated to repeat again and again. For some, this would be a literal hell, in which you're haunted by your mistakes forever. But whether or not we're doomed to repeat our lives, Nietzsche argued that living your life well meant embracing the idea that it'd happen again. To affirm the choices one has made is to love one's fate, what he calls amor fati. By not allowing our choices to ultimately affect the fate of the galaxy, Mass Effect leaves us with nothing to do but look back on the decisions we've made. And it basically asks us to see those choices as meaningful in and of themselves rather than as stepping stones toward an idealized outcome. They mattered because they involved us making value judgments about what to protect and what to sacrifice. They had us balancing principle against pragmatism, the direction of our moral compass against the rocky terrain we had to travel through. Our choices act as the external expression of who we are, a way of imposing yourself onto the world around us. This viewpoint is underlined in the short post-credit scene, which shows an old man entertaining a young child with stories about the Shepard who lived long ago and fought against the Reapers. He acknowledges that many of the details have been lost to time, but what remains is inspiring, leading the awe-stricken kid to ask what they'll find when they are able to travel out among the stars again. The story of Shepard lives on from one cycle to the next, offering guidance, reassurance, and encouragement to future generations. Shepard's fate may ultimately have been bound by the limitations of the final decision, but all the choices they made along the way remain powerful enough to resonate thousands of years into the future. Perhaps in response to fans' disappointment with the original ending's fatalism, a fourth alternative was later added that seems to indicate that what might feel hopeless to us can still offer inspiration for future generations. In this one, Shepard rejects the Catalyst options, refuses to use the Crucible at all, and allows the Reapers to complete their invasion. In the post-credit scenes to this ending, the storyteller explains that a message left behind by Shepard's generation allowed those who came after them to eventually defeat the Reapers once and for all.
They fought a terrible war, so we wouldn't have to.
A story told by those who came before allowed them to survive. Still, Mass Effect was never going to provide the sort of total closure that some players wanted. Its concern from the very beginning was with cycles rather than definitive endings. The conclusion of one battle simply provides the context for the next. But rather than rendering the whole journey meaningless, the finale directs us to look for purpose in a different way. In the grand cosmic scheme of things, our choices don't matter as much as we'd like to think they do. But in the moments where we stand by our friends or face down injustice or fight for survival, then they mean absolutely everything. But what do you guys think? Have we changed your mind about the ending? Or do you wish you had a mass relay to launch us into the sun with? Let us know in the comments. Thanks as always to all our patrons for your support. Use your free will to hit that subscribe button and don't forget to ring the bell. And as always, thanks for watching. Peace. Amor Fati.
Very fantasy video game.
Alright.
Yeah, Amor Fati is the thing.
Sounds like an attack in Final Fantasy VII via some kind of healing water Leviathan.